August 17, 1943, 25,000 feet above central Germany. The air inside the B-17F Flying Fortress V packet is negative 40 degrees. The oxygen masks of the crew are frozen solid, a grotesque rime of ice clinging to the rubber. The noise is not a sound, it is a physical state of being. The 4 Wright Cyclone engines, each displacing 800 horsepower, are in a constant, screaming roar that vibrates through the aluminum skin, through the steel frame, and into the very bones of the 10 men inside. They have been vibrating for 5 hours. Outside the plexiglass, the sky is a painful, crystalline blue. Below, the target, Schweinfurt, a grey industrial smudge that holds the key to the entire German war machine, ball bearings. Lieutenant Frank Jessup, the bombardier, lies on his stomach in the cramped, transparent nose. He is, for all practical purposes, the most important man in the 8th Air Force right at this moment. The flak begins. It appears as if by magic, silent and graceful. Puffs of greasy black smoke, nicknamed black hydrangeas by the crews. They are beautiful, and they are designed to kill him. A metallic thwack rings out, louder than the engines, shrapnel. It punches a neat hole through the fuselage just behind Jessup's station. He doesn't flinch. He cannot. His entire world has shrunk to the eyepiece of his bombsight. He is looking at a smudge of grey, trying to make it resolve into a factory. The B-17 is the lead ship. 12 other bombers are flying off his wings, their own bombardiers waiting. When Jessup drops, they drop. 130 men, 12 aircraft, and 60 tons of high explosives are tied to the nerves in his right hand. "Steady! Steady!" he whispers into the intercom, his voice a tight crackle. The pilot, Captain Price, fights the controls. The air is a violent river. "Target drifting left," Jessup says. Price corrects. "Little more. Hold it. Hold. Damn it!" A jolt of turbulence, or perhaps the shockwave from a nearby flak burst, throws the crosshairs completely off the target. Jessup's heart hammers against his ribs. He is fighting the limitations of his own body, the weather, and his equipment. He is using the standard issue Sperry bombsight, a complex but ultimately manual device. He has to time the target's passage between 2 wires, consult a mental chart, and dial in the windage by hand. He is, in essence, guessing. He is performing calculus in his head while being shot at. 2 minutes to drop point, Price warns. The tension is unbearable. The black hydrangeas are thicker now, a solid wall of explosions. Jessup can smell the cordite, acrid and sharp, even through his mask. He sees the target again. A long, flat-roofed building. That's it. He starts his timing, 1,000, 1,000. An FW-190, a German fighter, screams past the nose, its 20mm cannons winking. The plane lurches violently as the tail gunner opens up. Jessup is thrown from the eyepiece. He slams his head against the bulkhead. "Lost it! I lost the target!" he screams. He's frantic. They are over the target area now. "Toggle 'em, Lieutenant!" Price roars. "We have to get out of here!" Jessup grabs the emergency release. He can't find the factory. He just drops. "Bombs away!" he yells. The plane leaps upward, suddenly 5,000 pounds lighter. Price banks the fortress so hard the wings groan, diving for the relative safety of the rally point. Jessup watches the bombs fall, a string of black dots shrinking against the green earth. They land. The explosions are perfect, clustered, a full half-mile east of the ball-bearing plant, obliterating a railway siding and a field. A failure. They have flown 600 miles through a gauntlet of lethal fire and have accomplished nothing. Frank Jessup rips his frozen mask off, his lungs burning in the thin air, and slams his leather-gloved fist against the metal sight. What no one knew was that this moment, this precise feeling of impossible failure, would change the war forever. The year is 1941. The United States is not yet at war, but it is preparing for one. The dominant theory at the Army Air Corps Tactical School is that bombers, flying in tight, self-defending formations, can win a war on their own. They are flying fortresses. They will fly higher than fighters can easily reach, 25, 00, even 30 feet, and, immune from the flak below, will systematically destroy an enemy's industrial heart. This doctrine is called high-altitude daylight precision bombing. It is bold, it is revolutionary, and it is based on a complete fantasy. The problem is physics. A bomb dropped from 30,000 feet, over 5.5 miles, will not hit the ground for nearly 60 seconds. In that minute, the B-17, traveling at 200 miles per hour, has moved over 3 miles forward. The bomb, retaining that forward momentum, travels with it. But it is also attacked by a chaotic, invisible enemy, the wind. A 30-meter crosswind, a gentle breeze at that altitude, will push the bomb nearly half a mile off target. Worse, the wind is not consistent. It blows at different speeds and in different directions at 30, 20, and 10 feet. This is to say nothing of air density, humidity, or the Earth's rotation. Dropping a bomb from that height is not like dropping a rock. It is like trying to spit off the top of the Empire State Building and hit a specific crack in the sidewalk during a hurricane while riding a unicycle. The existing bomb sights, like the Sperry S-1 that Frank Jessup was using, are little more than sophisticated slide rules. They are timing sights. The bombardier must visually track the target for a set period, manually input the plane's speed and altitude, and guess the wind's effect. The entire calculation is dependent on the pilot holding the aircraft perfectly level and steady, an impossibility in the vibrating, flak-tossed skies over Germany. The Army knows this is a problem. At test ranges in the Mojave Desert, they drop hundreds of practice bombs. The results are horrifying. Only 1% of bombs dropped from 20,000 feet land on the target. The precision in precision bombing is a lie. The entire B-17 program, America's billion-dollar bet, is destined to fail. The British, having already suffered catastrophic losses in daylight, have given up. They've embraced night area bombing, incendiary raids that simply burn entire cities to the ground, killing civilians by the tens of thousands. They urge the Americans to join them. General Ira Eaker and General Hap Arnold, the fathers of the Air Corps, resist. They believe there is a more moral, more effective way, but they have no tool to achieve it. The data is clear. The math is undeniable. Experts agreed it could not be done. Enter Carl L. Norden. He is the definition of an unlikely hero. He's not a soldier, not a charismatic leader, not even an American by birth. He is a Dutch-American engineer, born in Java, educated in Switzerland, and possessing a personality that can only be described as difficult. He is a stubborn, obsessive, deeply religious Lutheran who believes his work is a divine calling. He is a consultant, working not for the Army, but for the U.S. Navy's Bureau of Ordnance. He is 61 years old, and he is a notorious perfectionist. For 20 years, Norden has been obsessed with a single problem: hitting a moving ship from a moving airplane. He despises the Army's timing sights. He calls them crude guessing sticks. Norden's idea is radically different. He envisions a machine that is not just a calculator, but a computer. A mechanical analog computer made of over 200 individual watch-like parts. Gears, gyroscopes, motors, wheels, discs and mirrors. His insight is twofold. First, the sight must not guess the wind, it must calculate it in real time. He uses a tachometric system. The bombardier looks through an eyepiece at the target. He then uses two knobs, one for range, one for azimuth, to keep the crosshairs perfectly locked on the target. As he does this, the rate at which he turns those knobs tells the sight's internal computer the plane's precise ground speed and its drift angle. The computer instantly digests this, along with the manually inputted altitude and airspeed, and continuously calculates the exact release point. It is brilliant, but it is his second insight that is pure genius. Norden knows the single biggest variable is the human element, the pilot. No human pilot can fly a plane that steady. So Carl Norden decides to take the pilot out of the equation. He links his bomb sight to the B-17's autopilot. During the final 60 seconds of the bomb run, the bombardier himself flies the plane, not with a yoke, but with the tiny, sensitive knobs of the bomb sight. The machine, not the man, makes the final, minute corrections. He presents his early models to the Army Air Corps. They are summarily rejected. A general at Wright Field famously scoffs at the prototype. "Mr. Norden," he says, "this is a laboratory instrument. It's a watch. What I need is a robust alarm clock. This thing has 200 parts. A single .50 caliber bullet will turn it to scrap. Another objects to the cost, $6,000 apiece, the price of a small house." The army continues to pour money into its favored and inferior Sperry sight. Norden is incensed. He sees the army as intellectually lazy, committed to a flawed design. They want something good enough. He complains to his Navy liaison. There is no good enough in this. There is only perfect. He is dismissed as an arrogant academic. He retreats to his New York City workshop, a place of legendary secrecy where his own engineers are strip-searched on entry. He refuses to give up. He believes with religious fervor that his perfect instrument is the only way. If the army will not have it, he will continue to perfect it for the Navy, convinced that history will eventually prove him right. Norden's sole champion in the early days is Captain Frederick Ted Entwistle of the Navy Bureau of Ordnance. Entwistle sees the genius where the Army sees only complexity, but the Navy is focused on dive bombing. High-altitude leveling is the Army's game. They are at an impasse. The rejection is not a single event, but a death by 1,000 cuts. A decade of the Army preferring its own simpler, flawed systems. But as the B-17 program ramps up in 1941, a few forward-thinking officers in the Air Corps, including Colonel, later General Hap Arnold, grow desperate. The Sperry tests are failing. They need an alternative. Reluctantly, they agree to a joint comparative test with the Navy at the Aberdeen Proving Ground. The test is a disaster. The 1st Army bombardier trained on the Sperry is completely baffled by Norden's complex array of knobs and dials. The link to the autopilot is buggy. The practice bomb lands 1,000 feet wide. The Army observers pack their bags. A fragile, expensive failure, one notes in his report. Norden is furious, not at the failure, but at the sloppiness. "They did not follow the procedure," he yells at Entwistle. He demands one more test. He finds an unlikely ally, a young, sharp-eyed Army bombardier, Lieutenant Lucky Jameson, who has heard rumors of Norden's magic box. Jameson volunteers, and Norden's own chief engineer, Theodore Barth, spends 2 weeks training him in secret. The second test, a B-17 prototype, climbs to 15,000 feet over a target raft in the Chesapeake Bay. The air is choppy. Jameson settles in. "Okay, Captain," he says to the pilot. "I am engaging the sight." He dials in the altitude and airspeed. He finds the white circular raft in his eyepiece. He begins to turn the knobs, his fingers delicate, superimposing the crosshairs. Then he throws the clutch. "I have the aircraft," he says. In the cockpit, the pilot, a gruff veteran named Pappy Stokes, feels the yoke go dead in his hands. He instinctively tries to correct for a gust of wind. The yoke fights him, moving on its own. "My God," Stokes whispers, "the machine is flying." For 70 seconds, silence fills the intercom. Jameson is no longer a passenger. He is steering. The 25-ton bomber with his fingertips through the eyepiece. The plane crabs perfectly into the wind, the crosshairs locked on the raft as if glued there. The bombs away, light flashes. A single 500 lb bomb is released. They circle. The crew watches the black dot fall and fall and fall. A geyser of white water erupts. When it clears, the target raft is gone. Obliterated. A direct hit. "Bullseye," Jameson says, his voice shaking. The age of precision had begun. If you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button. The news of the Chesapeake test electrified a small, secret circle within the Army Air Corps. But the war in Washington was just as fierce as the one brewing over Europe. The Sperry Gyroscope Company had a massive contract, powerful political allies, and a strong argument. Their sight was already in mass production. The Norden M series, they argued, was a boutique item, too complex to build in the numbers needed to win a war. In early 1942, a final decisive meeting is held in a smoke-filled room in the newly completed Pentagon. On one side, the Sperry executives and old guard Army procurement officers. On the other, Carl Norden, Ted Entwistle, and a handful of true believer Air Corps officers, including the now promoted Colonel Harris. The Sperry representative speaks first. "Generals, this is a war of production. We can deliver 10 sites by Christmas. Mr. Norden's watch requires hand tooling. It's fragile. It will never survive the rigors of combat." The room is heavy with doubt. All eyes turn to Norden. He is not a salesman. He stands stiff and severe. "Gentlemen," he says, his Dutch accent clipping the words, "you asked to hit a pickle barrel from 20,000 feet. You cannot do this with an alarm clock. You must be perfect." He gestures to Harris. "Colonel?" Harris presents the data. He shows the photos from the Chesapeake test. "This was not a lucky shot, sir. This was a calculation. The Norden sight removes the two greatest variables, the wind and the pilot. It links the bombardier's eye directly to the aircraft's controls. It is the only instrument in the world that can do this." The debate rages for hours. Finally, General Hap Arnold, Chief of the Army Air Forces, makes the call. He is betting the entire air war on Norden's rejected idea. "Get me the Norden," he orders. "Spare no expense. It is now the most secret weapon we have." The validation is swift and brutal. The Norden M9 is designated top secret. An elaborate security apparatus springs up. Bombardiers are trained at secret schools in the New Mexico desert. They must take a bombardier's oath, swearing to protect the site with their lives. The site itself is kept under armed guard. covered by a canvas hood and fitted with a small thermite charge. The bombardier's first duty, if the plane is going down, is not to grab his parachute, but to destroy the site. We jump to 1944. A B-17G squadron, the 100th Bomb Group, is on its bomb run over the Fokker-Wulf factory at Marienburg. Altitude, 27,000 feet. The lead bombardier, Captain Tom Landry, is hunched over his Norden. "Sight engaged. I have the aircraft," he calls. For 90 seconds he is the 100th Bomb Group. 11 other planes are slaved to their bombardiers watching for his bombs-away light. The flak is the worst they have ever seen. Shrapnel rips through the nose, shattering the plexiglass, wounding Landry in the leg. He ignores it. He is in the zone. His world shrunk to the crosshairs. They are locked on the factory's main assembly hall. His fingers dance on the knobs, making micro-corrections. The crosshairs do not move. "Bombs away!" The entire group toggles. Post-strike reconnaissance photos tell the story. Before Norden, strike photos showed bombs scattered over a square mile. The Marienburg photos are stunning. 94% of the bombs dropped by the 100th Group have landed within the factory complex. The plant is not just damaged, it has ceased to exist. Carl Norden's fragile watch has just won the battle. The Norden Bombsight became a legend, a symbol of American technological supremacy. The press, fed carefully manicured stories by the War Department, hailed it as a miracle weapon, capable of hitting a pickle barrel from 30,000 feet. This was, of course, an exaggeration. The post-war strategic bombing survey would reveal a more complex truth. Under the hellish real-world conditions of combat, of overwhelming flak, swarms of fighters, freezing temperatures, and human terror, the pickle barrel was a myth. In reality, across the entire war, only about 50% of American bombs landed within a quarter-mile of their target. But this statistic, which sounds like a failure, was, in fact, a revolutionary victory. Before the Norden, that number was less than 5%. The sight was not perfect, but it was infinitely better than anything else. It was accurate enough to be strategic. It allowed the 8th Air Force to systematically blind, cripple and dismantle Germany's ability to wage war. The oil refineries at Ploesti, the U-boat pens at Saint-Nazaire, the aircraft factories at Regensburg. It was the tool that made the doctrine of daylight precision bombing and the B-17 itself viable. Carl Norden never sought the spotlight. The government eventually paid $6 million for his patents, but he remained the same reclusive, obsessive engineer. He was awarded the Holly Medal for a great and unique act of genius, but he was haunted by his creation. He was a devout man who had built the most effective killing instrument of his age. He had set out to solve a problem in physics, only to provide the answer to a terrible question of war. After 1945, the thousands of top-secret Norden bomb sites were sold as military surplus for a few dollars apiece. The age of mechanical computing was over. The atomic and digital age had begun. Yet, the legacy of Norden's rejected idea is everywhere. Every time a modern airliner engages its autopilot, linking a guidance system to the plane's controls, it is using the core principle Norden perfected. The gyroscopic stabilizers in our smartphones and the guidance systems in our satellites are the direct descendants of the 200 tiny, perfect gears that spun inside that magic box. The sight was a paradox, a machine of stunning complexity built by a man of simple, stubborn faith. It stands as a silent monument to the idea that the greatest leaps forward are often made by those who stubbornly refuse to accept the consensus, who look at an impossible problem and quietly, obsessively set about building the solution. What other forgotten stories of courage should we tell? Comment below.